What is up, YouTube? Hello. Welcome to the next part of my series on documenting the serial police impersonator, Jeremy Dewitte. Oh, Jeremy, you'll never learn. Quick disclaimer, this is a reaction channel. This is not real world police. Some of y'all are under the impression that I am producing new Jeremy Dewitte content a la real world police. That is not this channel, so I apologize if you found me that way, but this is just reaction and commentary. The reason why I started commenting on Jeremy Dewitte is because I noticed that there's just this lack of really quality commentary on his life. RWP really does this very well, where they put the clips up and they very much leave it to the interpretation of the viewer. But I think, we have all these cultures surrounding these relatively innocuous characters on the internet, like Chris Chan, Amberlynn Reed, Chantal Marie, Charlie Gold, Nikocado Avocado. And while I agree that those people are, at worst, misguided, all of them kind of mislead their viewers, and they very much do work up the camera for personal gain, which I personally disagree with. While I agree that they're annoying, I genuinely think that Jeremy Dewitte is a bad person. I don't think Amberlynn Reed is a bad person. She's misguided, but she's never made me think that she's a danger to society like Jeremy Dewitte has. And that's what Jeremy is. He's a danger to society that should be commented on. I couldn't really reckon with the idea that internet culture is just so willing to jump on these characters who are bombastic and who are annoying, but then we're not willing to put that critical eye on someone who I think is a genuine danger to society. Like, impersonating a police officer is a felony for a reason. Whether or not you agree with the police as an institution, the fact is that they occupy a very high authority in society, and impersonating somebody like that comes with consequences. I mean, there's so many documented cases of people impersonating law enforcement and taking advantage of people, of hurting people. And the fact that Jeremy Dewitte does this with want and abandon constantly, I think he is deserving of some criticism. From me, who doesn't really know him, doesn't know much about law enforcement, I just think that there has to be some sort of conversation started. And in starting that conversation, I've noticed quite a bit of division. There are some videos people are totally in my camp and think that I'm right on, and other videos where people completely disagree and think that I'm mistaken, and that's okay. No one's really commenting on him, and I think we have to start that conversation now. When Nikki was here, she made the assertion that he's kind of like a sociopath, and I don't want to diagnose him with anything, but he does display tendencies of narcissism, and you could argue that it comes from a troubled home, and maybe he's not fully responsible for his actions, but the problem is that when you're an adult, the adverse experiences you felt as a child, you have an obligation in society, and I don't necessarily agree with this, but this is just the way our society is. You have this obligation in society to do better and to seek help and to not just live with this baggage that is defining your life. There's so many cases of people who have these horrible experiences in childhood who maybe didn't have the best parents, and they do take their mental health very seriously, and I think that in our nation we should make it easier for those people to access resources. But I don't think we should use it as an excuse for Jeremy Dewitte. He's had so many options to get help. He's had so many chances to say, I don't want to be a serial police impersonator anymore. Yet he's done it consistently at least 10 times, allegedly. I have to say allegedly, because his trial's coming up and there's nothing set in stone. So I don't think I'm being unnecessarily cruel by commenting on him. I think that he is a danger. I think that he's neglected getting help for whatever it is that he has not reckoned with throughout his life. And we do have an obligation to draw attention to him. So that is enough rambling. I am sorry. We're going to get to the video. We're going to do another 3-parter, picking up where I left off, whenever that was. All right, so we are on these stories. Ironically, when Jeremy Dewitte was arrested at the age of 18 on May 18, 1998, for impersonating a police officer while carrying an Oviedo Police Explorer badge, Jennifer, the woman he met from Ashley Madison, was attending school in Oviedo, Florida. Jennifer would later state to law enforcement she joined a few dating apps because she'd had a tough breakup and she wanted a lighter relationship with zero expectations. Her relationship would not be light with Jeremy Dewitte, nor would it end with his April 2018 arrest. So they kept seeing each other, is what I'm getting from this. There's the complaint number, there's the case file, affidavit for arrest. Okay, so the arrest warrant. So they did, arrest warrant. So they did arrest him at this time. There were many stories Jeremy Dewitte told others in the past, according to court documents. The first story was his identity. Jeremy Dewitte told Jennifer his name was J. Dewitt. Red flag. In various statements, Jennifer... Okay, sorry, I just have to... That's so dumb. Like, why not just call yourself Steven? Why even use your last name? Just say you're Stephen Paulson or you're Robert Smith. Like, why even keep your last name? In various statements, Jennifer claimed she was immediately suspicious about the name Jay because it sounded like a nickname for a proper name. Yes, it was. It was. Was he trying to pull a loophole? Be like, well, I did tell her my name. I said Jay Dewitte. Jay is just short for Jeremy. Honey, you're not fooling anybody. I could just be like, oh yeah, my name's B Miranda, and I spell it B-E-A, but I'm like, oh no, I meant B Miranda as in, it's so dumb. God. According to her, Jeremy said his name was in fact Jay and it wasn't a nickname. Jennifer stated she also saw multiple spellings of Jeremy Dewitte's last name on paperwork, the aforementioned Dewitt and then Dewitte. Dewitte. Why? Jeremy attempted to change his name on September 8th, 2014 with his attorney Daniel Lapina 3 years after being released from prison and 4 years before meeting Jennifer. Judge Diana M. Tennis dismissed his 2014 attempt. Because when you impersonate a police officer, you're not allowed to change your name. When you have these multiple felonies on your record, a judge is not going to be like, oh yeah, we'll just forget about all of that. Girl, no. Supporters of this memorial and police officer Jeremy Dewitte, Master Sergeant. I'm not entirely sure what this is. The second story was Jeremy Dewitte's former career as an Oviedo police officer, but he wasn't. In the 1998 Mobil gas station or gasoline theft and police impersonation case, Mobil employee Cassandra, we love her, the Queen Cassandra herself, and her supervisor KJ assumed Jeremy was a law enforcement officer, but in the state of Florida, Jeremy was ineligible to be sworn in because he hadn't reached the age of 19. Because of his felony arrest, he never would have been able to become a police officer in the state of Florida. Have I made this comment before that being 19 and a police officer is just weird? I feel like in the academy, by the time you graduate, you'd be 20-something. 19's fairly young to have a gun and be in charge of authority, that's a whole different conversation we're going to have later. And there's that picture of him taking a photo, all cute. It's a cute photo. I'm okay with saying that. The third story was Jeremy Dewitte's military In looking at court documents, it appears Jeremy told Jennifer he was in the military, in Special Forces operations, and he met his wife Renaya while fighting overseas and brought her back to the United States. Police investigators have repeatedly said Jeremy Dewitte was never in the military, and he certainly wasn't in Special Forces operations. And you want to know how I know? Because my brother was Special Forces in the Marines when he served. So Jeremy Dewitte does not exemplify what a Special Forces officer is. Because I know. I'm related to him. I'm going to see him this weekend. That doesn't even look like him. Honey, look, girl, who do you think you're fooling? What, my birthday, was it yesterday? No, it wasn't. That's not, it doesn't even look like it. What is with that? That's just a stock photo. Girl, this is insulting to my intelligence. There's a fourth story. The fourth story was his wife Renaya's medical condition. In text messages attached to court documents, it appears Jeremy Dewitte told Jennifer his wife Renaya was physically ill and she had a bad heart. That would just, if this girl has a conscience, she'd be like, I don't want to cheat on you when your wife is dying, Unless there's more to the story, which there definitely is. Jeremy also appeared to bring up his wife's illness when Jennifer wasn't responding quickly enough to his messages or phone calls. In one message, Jeremy Dewitte stated his wife had a heart attack, and Jennifer and Jeremy began discussing Renaya's refusal to take her medication. That wasn't your first red flag that this girl is just so down to sleep with you and your wife is dying in the next room? I would just immediately be like, you are just as sociopathic. Maybe that's what he needs. Someone who's just as emotionally dead inside. Oh my god. Hot tech call. What? Call me up. Call me. I'm sorry. I'll text later. Renaya had heart attack and is in ER. This guy is the pinnacle nice guy. If you don't respond, he's gonna be fine. I'll just freaking off myself. That's fine. Girl, you're not fooling anybody. Oh my god. He's making up this whole elaborate story, and his wife's probably fine. Whether or not she has illnesses, I'm sure she didn't have a heart attack. That's kind of messed up. It's like people who say my grandma died to get out of class, which I've never done. The fifth story, y'all, was Jeremy Dewitt's felonious past. In an affidavit, Jennifer claimed Jeremy never told her he was a felon, and she never would have believed he was since he said he owned a security business and guns. At the time, Jeremy Dewitte was a registered sex offender, but this information was never disclosed to Jennifer according to her claims. There's the famous wall of photos, and he was really trying out those mutton chops for a while. It was not a good look. The final story number 6, was Jeremy Dewitte's ability to pull motorists over and to command his employees also pull motorists over. That's the main. If you never did that, I'm fairly certain the police would have never caught you. Like, if there weren't all these reports of, like, people being like, yeah, this guy pulled me over on a motorcycle, but he wasn't a police officer, I think you could have gotten away with it for much longer. Because that was, like, the main thing they arrested you for. Because you're pulling over traffic and making a big scene. God, according to an affidavit, Jennifer stated she heard Jeremy pulling people over numerous times, and she had many discussions with him about it. She also claimed Jeremy reassured her it was fine with law enforcement and all of his employees were allowed to do it. And that's the end. Okay, let's go on to red flags. The red flags. Intuition is always right in at least 2 important ways. It is always in response to something, and it always has your best interest at heart. Gavin de Becker. This was a quote from Gavin de Becker, author of the bestseller The Gift of Fear, Survival Signals That Protect Us from Violence. I actually need to read that. Gavin de Becker is a security expert who evaluates threats and has protected celebrities and former U.S. presidents. He advises everyone from law enforcement to victims of domestic violence. Intuition, discernment, gut instinct, and the sixth sense are some of the terms used to describe an imbalance of energy. And having the insight to feel what is actually happening is different from what we are being told is happening. Okay. In 1998, mobile cashier Cassandra had a feeling something wasn't quite right about the story she was being told by Jeremy Dewitte. Well, the fact that he looked like a child and said he was a law enforcement officer, who at the time claimed he was a member of law enforcement. There's the famous mobile, Ground Zero, where it all began. Cassandra stated something told her he wasn't really a police officer, but instead of trusting her own instincts, she continued to listen to Jeremy as he allegedly tried to convince her what she was seeing was what was occurring. Manipulation can be seen in a child as young as 2 years old. Unable to verbalize his wants and needs as well as an adult, a toddler is still able to learn how to get a response from his parents. He throws himself on the ground or holds his breath because mom and dad run in circles to stop the behavior. And that's very true. I studied adolescent psychology for a very, very long time. As an adult, manipulative lies work best when someone is confident in their lies. Having the ability to make someone feel guilty for believing their intuition and not the shaky story presented in front of them is another layer of how cunning a calculating person can be. In society, we still believe we are all the same. No one would ever do action A because we would never do action A. No one would ever lie about action B because we would never lie about action B. No one would be capable of hurting person C because we would never hurt person C. The need to rationalize what we see in front of us is common. Cassandra saw a man wearing a police badge with lights in his dashboard, and she listened as he said he was a police officer. It looked right, but it didn't feel right. A normal person would question why anyone would lie about something so big and so easy to disprove. Yes. A manipulative person hopes these doubts spin around a normal person's mind, and the manipulative person hopes the questions last long enough for them to slink away after they commit their crimes. That is very true. That's actually that's a textbook description of how cult leaders operate. There's so many stories of Charles Manson or Jonestown, of these regular guys, basically. Charles Manson was a huge hippie, but these fairly intelligent people convincing other fairly intelligent people to commit these horrible acts. And Jeremy Dewitte is not on the level of Charles Manson or Jonestown, but he does have these common trends in his own personality of wanting to be in control, of making up these horrible manipulative lies, and trying to convince rational people that he is a police officer. He has this pathological need to convince people of that. According to documents, Jennifer said everything was going well with Jeremy Dewitte. The problem was something didn't feel right. Jennifer had the same reaction as Cassandra 20 years later. She was being presented with what looked right, but what felt wrong. In an affidavit, she said she knew the name he was giving her wasn't correct. Really? After a recent date in April 2018, Jennifer looked up J. Dewitte in Orlando, Florida in a Google search, and she couldn't find a match. After checking a series of male names beginning with J plus Jeremy Dewitte's fictitious last name, Jennifer was finally able to find Jeremy Dewitte's Florida Department of Law Enforcement sex offender flyer. Jennifer claimed she was shocked and she called Orange County Sheriff's Office because she was concerned. Thank you, Jennifer. She met Detective Michael Mastrangelo. The officer Jeremy Dewitte was to report all registration changes to. Ooh, Michael. Jennifer was asked by law enforcement to collect as much information as she could when she was around Jeremy without placing herself in danger. This was one of the last texts she sent to Jeremy Dewitte before his arrest. Okay, so she's not a cold, unfeeling sociopath who's fine sleeping with this guy whose wife is dying. Well, she could be, but never mind. I'm gonna paint Jennifer as the hero here. And there's the text message between them. Can you send me a picture of you in uniform? I love the way you look in it. It's so sexy. You know what's going to be even sexier? When you end up in a prison jumpsuit. Oh my god. What Jeremy Dewitte didn't know at the time was Jennifer was sitting in front of a police detective when she made the request for the photo. When asked what else she knew about Jeremy Dewitte and his business Metro State Special Services, Jennifer stated Jeremy and his employees were pulling motorists over according to court documents. This part of her statement wouldn't be investigated or shared with other members of law enforcement for about another year and a half. The registration. On April 7, 2018, a warrant was issued for Jeremy Dewitte's arrest for failure to register 2 online accounts as a sex offender. Both of these accounts were used to interact with at least one woman he was dating named Jennifer. There's the arrest warrant. Amir Ladon once again made an appearance as Jeremy Dewitte's defense attorney. He needs to invite all of them for a mixer. Like, he's so tight with all these guys now. On June 13, 2018, the state of Florida officially filed charges against Jeremy, and Sarah Hatch was the assigned assistant state attorney. Jeremy Dewitte entered a plea of not guilty, and the case seemed to move along without any issues for 8 months. But then the court was blindsided when the judicial assistant received an email correspondence on February 6, 2019 from Jennifer, who was now a witness for the state. According to the email, Jennifer was in a relationship with Jeremy Dewitte from May of 2018 until February 2019, unbeknownst to the court. Good morning, Miss Redacted. I understand what you're going through. Unfortunately, this is considered ex parte communication. I cannot... Okay, wait. This is the reply. Let's go to original message from Jennifer. Good morning. I'm very concerned about myself and my safety at this point. Jeremy Dewitte is the defendant in the case titled above. In 2018, I contacted FDLE and Orange County Sheriff's Office about his failure to register on 2 online apps we communicated through. Although I was told Dewitte's arrest was no fault of my own, and I was also told there wouldn't be a trial, Mr. Dewitte has asked me repeatedly to speak to prosecutors, the first being Sarah Hatch on his behalf. He has claimed he'll kill himself, and it will be my fault, or he will flee the country to Egypt, and that will also be my fault. Textbook manipulator, but a poor one. I have experienced a trauma recently, and I was redacted. Mr. Dewitte is aware of this, and he has used this opportunity to manipulate and intimidate me into being a neutral party so he won't have a prison sentence. He has told me if he loses his business, he will be a very difficult man to deal with. He will make things hard for me. He then backtracks and says he will kill himself and tells me he will either do it by motorcycle accident or jumping off of a bridge. I have screenshots of some of those texts, which I will send in a separate email. As I said before, I'm aware there won't be a trial, and I won't even have to be a witness. But in the event that Mr. Dewitte is given an unfair sentence, and he has said, I'm worried about what may happen. My statements to Orange County and FDLE are accurate and truthful. Text message revealed the two were communicating during Ramadan, which was May 15th through June 14th, 2018. There's also a text message conversation about Renaya Dewitte, Jeremy Dewitte's ex-wife. Or Jeremy Dewitte's wife, sorry. Freudian slip. This guy is so down with sending these text messages, like these really explicit text messages to this girl who is responsible for him getting arrested. Like, does he know at this point that it was her? He had to have known. Maybe. Oh, so he does know. Okay. In her email, she claimed Jeremy Dewitte asked her repeatedly to change her testimony. Jennifer said she was given instructions to meet at his attorney Amir Ladon's office and sign a new document stating she didn't mean to report certain parts of her first affidavit in 2018. Oh my god. So is the attorney trying to intimidate her? No, not the attorney, it's Jeremy. It's Jeremy. Well, there's the legal assistant, whatever. Jennifer also forwarded text messages from Jeremy Dewitte, and in those texts he claimed he would either run away to Egypt or kill himself if she didn't change her testimony. Oh my god. Like, this is the worst possible thing you could do to prove your innocence. You should just shut up. Whether Jeremy Dewitte was manipulating Jennifer is up to interpretation. He was. Poorly. But one thing was clear, the two apparently had an eventful year and hit the reset button after Jeremy's April 2018 arrest. If I knew someone was the reason I was going to probably go to jail, I would not try to rekindle a relationship. That was on him. That is insane. That is just insane. Like, this guy will never learn. He doesn't learn. He doesn't learn. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate all of the comments that I'm getting. Please like and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram. That is the best way to get a hold of me. I respond to all of my DMs. I pinky promise. And yeah, we will be back with another Jeremy Dewitte piece of content soon. All right. See ya.